What's up, everybody? It is the FDOH, as I saw in the chat already, which is buzzing. The first day of hockey. This is Morning Cuppa Hockey, presented by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365, so use our code Daily365. It is the final division preview before we get into some real regular season hockey. We're going to talk about the Metropolitan Division with Stefen Rosner and Mike Rupp later on in the show. But before we do any of that, that is Colby Cohen. I'm Jonny Lazarus. And Colby, what are your thoughts going into the first day of hockey? Are you excited? Because I want to see a smile on your face. I can't stop smiling, but let's see the pearly whites over there on you.
Yeah, well, look, you're always more excited about everything than I am. I think we both know that. I do want to say this to start the show. You know, I was very off my phone yesterday, so I was not watching this unfold in real time on social media. You obviously texted me about it, but I didn't really have a chance to respond for like 12 hours almost. And it's what happened with Frank Seravalli yesterday. I think everybody who listens to our show, watches our show, you all know Frank comes on our show on Tuesdays. Not joining us today. He's actually joining us tomorrow because he's out in Utah covering the game. But look, I know yesterday, obviously, something that he wrote upset a lot of people, understandably so. Like, I understand that. But look, I wanted to start the show today, and I wanted to just say, look, I think, I've known Frank a very long time, like since we're single digit in age. And I don't think that, that was meant in the way that people took it. Actually, it's not that I don't think. I know that was not maliciously done by Frank.
Yeah.
And, I give him credit. He came out, he addressed it, he apologized. But listen, Frank is not a person who was looking for attention by tweeting by writing that. When you're writing and you're writing a bunch of different articles, and, sometimes, again, you're so engaged in what you're saying, you don't realize how something may sound or may be taken. And I know that he changed it, and I know what he was trying to say. And let me just tell you this. When that happened, when Johnny and his brother, Matty, were killed, tragically killed, Frank was the person who reached out to me the night before it became a public statement. He knew about this 12 hours before this became really public. And he was so, distraught. And not because they were super close or anything like that, but because he understands a family. He has 2 children. He's very close with the rest of his family, his mother, his father. He's had a lot of death in his family over the last the last 12 months. Both of his parents have lost a number of people within their family. So I just want to say this. I want to defend Frank and tell people that listen to this show that, again, it certainly did not come out right, but I will defend his character as a person, as someone who gets to be around my family, my child. I'm around, I see how he is as a parent, all of these things. And so I did want to start the show by addressing that, because, again, I know it was trending on Twitter. I spoke to him last night. He felt absolutely horrible, like he did. And he just, he certainly apologized on social media, and he's got to do his best now today to get up and do his job and move on from what was said. But I'm just saying, he did not mean that in a harmful way. I see why people took it that way. I do. I can understand it. But as someone who's known him for 25 plus years, I'm telling you, it was not the intention.
I think, when I first saw it, I looked at it as if he was saying the hockey gods will be on Columbus's side, which is kind of how I took it originally. And sometimes, listen, these things, one person takes it the wrong way, they share it, then someone who just sees it with not as much context takes it that way too, and people just start to pile on and agree. And that's how Twitter works. Like, I texted Frank yesterday, and we talked about it, and I explained to him, listen, sometimes these things just happen. And, it's happened to me plenty of times before too, like where someone just takes something that you said, they spin it in their own way, and then people just pile on. That's just how being online works. But Colby, I agree with you, and I know exactly what Frank meant and what he was trying to say. And listen, the wording was poor. there's no other way around it. It was poor wording, but you know, like you said, he knows the Gaudreau family very well. They're personal friends, and you know,
Well, no,
obviously,
I want to be clear. I didn't say that. I said quite the opposite. He knew Jonny in a business in a business manner, right? Like had a working relationship with him, but he wasn't super close to him. But when this did happen, you know, like again, he couldn't get out of bed for 24 hours.
Yeah.
He was so upset that someone in our community had lost their life. Two people in our community, especially for us here in our local community. And obviously, I know we have people from Columbus that feel that, and people from Calgary, like everybody feels like they lost members of their local community with the Gaudreau brothers. So again, we're going to move on. We're going to move past it. But I'm going to defend him on this one and tell people, listen, you know, poor choice of words, but certainly not meant to upset people, not meant to be disrespectful. If any, he's anything but when it comes to these types of issues.
Mhm.
And again, I know this because we talk personally and about these things all the time. So wanted to start the show with that. And that's not why Frank is not with us today. He's in Utah, time change, covering the first day. They have a show they're preparing for with Daily Faceoff Live, which their show is launching today for the first day. Him and Tyler Yaremchuk at noon Eastern. And, you know, I will be actually joining Tyler Yaremchuk on DFO Live tomorrow at noon. So, you know, lots going on here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube page. I think Jonny and I both put it out on social media, the new channel lineup and what we have going on. There are shows really happening all day. With more coming, I believe, too. Like there are more shows in the hopper, more new members of the team potentially in the hopper. So subscribe to the YouTube page. Get involved with all the different shows. We bring you a lot of content, you know, to go off of. So let's get right into our preview here. Stefen Rosner is joining us to talk Isles, I think, in about 10 minutes or a little bit less. But I think we just decided, you know, we're going to start talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think we'll just start there with the Metro. You know, obviously there's been a lot that has happened in Columbus this offseason. And, you know, we talk on this show all the time about how unbelievably underrated the town of Columbus is, and the fans and the atmosphere.
How they deserve better for years, basically.
They have. We've called them out, and we called out Jarmo Kekalainen for years, thinking, you know, all last year, I should say, for just being so average, right? And, you know, Catherine's telling us in the chat how the captain is already injured.
Yep.
And look,
Voronkov hurt too.
What'd you say?
Voronkov got hurt too in practice.
So look, new GM in Don Waddell, a guy who did a great job in Carolina, building a team and sustaining a team. So I want to give credit to the work he did in Carolina, probably with handcuffs on because of ownership in Carolina. Now he's going to go to Columbus, which from what we understand has great ownership. And I think he's going to get to do work here and sort of see this sort of rebuild. You know, I think expedited rebuild on the fly, I would say, is what Columbus is looking at. And it's interesting because, like, they didn't do a whole lot this offseason until recently with JVR. They signed LeBanc, who had a really good preseason, in New Jersey.
A friend of mine, 6 goals in the preseason.
Just no room for him. Imagine if they could get him back to like his early days of San Jose. Yeah. And then they just recently claimed Zach Aston Reese off of waivers, who, look, he's a serviceable NHL player. He's not anything for Catherine to get excited about in Columbus. And look, that roster right there that Vic just put up on the screen, that's a lottery picking looking roster. Like that is going to be, you know, one of the worst 3 teams in the National Hockey League this year. Which I mean, Dean Evison, who I've heard really good things about, like, I don't know how he's going to handle that. He's not used to being in that situation.
Sings he's actually going at LeBanc, and I'm going to defend Kevin LeBanc because LeBanc is one of the most underrated shots in the entire NHL. He actually permanently messed up my ankle when we were younger. We used to train together. I actually skated with him and Zach Aston Reese, so it's pretty cool to see the two of them reunited. They both come from Staten Island. So pretty cool story for Kevin Labanc and Zach Aston-Reese to finally play together in Columbus. But Labanc,
But
you know,
he's not wrong in what he's
no.
saying here.
But I wouldn't say he's not good.
Wrong with that comment. Oh, look, there's no such thing as a not good player in the NHL. So that's the baseline for it. But his point that he tore up in preseason,
that means nothing for sure.
That is a very reasonable statement by Singsy. And then Jeremiah's chiming in about Fantilli. Look, I think the world of Fantilli. Like, I think he's going to be a big time player. I really do. And I hope he has a breakout season. I really do. I hope that he, you know, becomes what we thought he would become. I watched him so up close and personal at Michigan, and I think that kid has a lot of star power.
Singsy already backtrack. Bad wording. Not a quality NHL forward. Fair enough. But yes, thank such a good shot.
Singsy is anything. He's a reasonable guy. He's a reasonable guy. Like when it's funny, like him and I, we sometimes like I don't remember what I responded to him about on Twitter recently. And I said, hey, I'm actually curious. Like, take me through your thought process on this, because I obviously didn't agree, but I wanted to hear. I do know he's a smart guy. So like, I want to hear what's the thought process. So I don't really remember. Oh geez, there are such thing as bad players. Look at Biz. Yes, but again, we're still talking about the best players in the world. There's certainly a scale, but they're the best players in the world. So there is a question about Rempe in the chat. We're going to get to the Rangers and we will address that because it's just a paper move, but we'll get there. We will get there. Let us finish on Columbus. Stefen Rosner is going to be joining us in like 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to get right into Isles. After Isles, we'll go to Rangers, because I know Johnny is absolutely dying to talk about the 100 assists that he thinks Lafreniere is going to get this year. So Columbus is going to struggle this year. Like there's really just no other way to put it. They're piecing together a roster, Johnny.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And listen, not only on the ice, but also away from it. It's no secret that they're going to be going through a lot this year emotionally. And your friend, James Van Riemsdyk, was one who talked about it when he signed there. I'm curious, have you talked to him at all, like since training camp started, about everything going on within the organization? And
I mean, look, he said there's heavy hearts, and he said Sean Monahan was certainly dealing with it probably the hardest. But he really sung the praises of his first like week or two with Dean Evison. He said, like, I think I'm really going to enjoy playing for Dean. And so you're telling me Benoit Oliver Garul is a good player. Listen, if you play in the NHL, you are a good hockey player. There is different variations of being an NHLer. Okay. But yes, I'm going to tell you, there is no such thing as a bad hockey player in the NHL. Okay. The other thing I would say here, Johnny, like Zach Werenski and Ivan Provorov, like they should be a good defensive pair. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of a drop off, after that, but that top pair should be a good pair in the NHL. They should be. If these guys stay together, those are two good quality NHL defensemen. Now, Jack Johnson's at the end of a very long career. Severson took the money and left the Devils, or he got traded. I don't remember exactly how he ended up in Columbus. Good Branson is what he is, but you do have a top pair. Okay. I will say that, but that's certainly not enough in this league just to win with a top
Severson
pair.
Was traded.
A couple of young players. Okay. So that was a trade, but it's going to be a long year for Columbus Blue Jackets fans. Catherine, we're sorry. It's not going to be great hockey to be watching, but I do have faith and trust that Don Waddell will get Columbus, back up to being a team that is playing at a competent level.
And I believe Elvis Merzlikins asked to get traded last year, so I wonder what's going to happen with that this year, because they weren't able to find a home for him, and he still has, I believe, 2 years or including this year, 3 years left on his deal before he's a UFA. He's making $5.4 million in net, so maybe something at the deadline for Elvis Merzlikins. He's voiced his frustrations, I feel like, with the organization.
Well, new coach, new GM. Yeah. Sometimes, again, I'm dealing with this in my own life here with the Titans. Like, new coaches, new GMs. It happens. Like, it's an ugly part of our business, but you gotta wait and see. Like you gotta give it a try before you just say, hey, I can't do this. So we'll see what happens with Merzlikins. So, all right, why don't you introduce your friend and bring him onto the show because he's patiently waiting, and
he's been patiently waiting since 7 o'clock last night. He's been texting me nonstop about how excited he is to come on the show. So before we bring on my friend Stefen Rosner, and I'll say that you guys are friends too, our friend Stefen Rosner, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Fountain Tire. Your family's safety is important, and you don't have to settle for a good deal or good customer service because they do both. They'll treat your vehicle like their own, and if you need new tires or your engine has a little rattle, stop into Fountain Tire and they'll sort you out. Save up to 25% off select tires, including Goodyear, until October 10th. Plus, save another $50 or more on any service of over $150, with some restrictions applying. Check out fountaintire.com. And with that, let's bring on my friend who covers the New York Islanders for the Hockey News and NHL.com, Stefen Rosner. And I know he's going to be very, very, very excited once he pops in, and it looks like he already is. You can hide the smile a little bit.
Relax. First off, I'm pretty.
I was going to call you Steven.
I'm proud of you for the ad read. I didn't know you could read. Colby, how are you doing this morning?
Good to see you, pal. That's a good way to start. Our guests have basically all been coming on this year and telling Jonny he's an idiot before they got into anything that they wanted to talk about. But look, you cover the Islanders every day. Like you're there. I see your tweets. You're in training camp every day.
Does not stop working, this kid. Nonstop.
What has the Patty Waugh experience been like out on the island to start? Because, look, I think everybody expects a guy like Patrick Waugh to get more out of his roster than maybe he even has. So what are the early returns and how are you feeling going into, the next couple of days, the opener of the season?
Yeah, I mean, you saw it last year when Waugh came on. First practice was like an Army troops. They're, back and forth, skating to the hard, to the bench, skating to the corners. It was like a drill sergeant pretty much controlling his troops. So you knew that was going to be the case coming training camp. And you talk to the players. It's been a difficult training camp. This is my third year on the beat. By far the most skating I've ever seen. The players are panting when they're talking to us. Funny enough, I was talking with Keith Kincaid. He was on a PTO there. We're doing an interview, and he's like, we got to start over. I got to catch my breath. So that's how Patrick Waugh's camp's been. And you can see a lot of guys, Matthew Barzal, Bo Horvat, they bought in right from the get-go, and now you're seeing every player buy in. And, of course, the players that couldn't buy in, a guy like Pierre Engvall, who lacked consistency and maybe that grit and aggressiveness that Waugh likes, is on his way to Bridgeport. So this is a season going into it where you're expecting a lot more commitment, a lot more consistency, and that's what I think Waugh's going to get out of this group. I think they're going to have the most consistent regular season they've had since even before Trotz.
Okay, well, with that, how would you say Waugh has changed their style? Because, you look at the national landscape of how people talk about the Islanders. I try to believe that I'm not one of those that say it, but everyone loves saying that the Islanders are boring, right? Like that's the narrative. I don't think so about this team, but with Waugh and under Waugh and the way that they play now, do you think that narrative will be changed and people will actually be excited to watch the Islanders? Because Stefen, I completely changed my mind on the thought or my thoughts on them just based on that first line. Watching Barzal, Horvat, and Duclair play together, that's an exciting and flashy first line, and I think they will change the narrative this year. But I'm curious to hear from you what their style really is.
Yeah, they're definitely not going to be boring. Under Barry Trotz, we understand the boring style of hockey. You're winning 1-0, 2-1 games. Under Lane Lambert, they tried to be more offensively minded. They did score more goals, except they allowed a lot more. And under Patrick
PK
Waugh,
was ass.
under Patrick Waugh, right? He said the first day, he goes, I don't want to be a defensive-minded team. I just want our fans to respect the way we play defense. There's going to be a ton of offense. He wants to play with speed and skill, and that's something that the Islanders haven't had on four lines. The identity line has been great. They were, Matt Martin, Casey Zizekas, Cal Clutterbuck. They were the identity for a very long time. But Casey Zizekas was the speed on that line. Now you look at it now, Kyle McLean and Casey Zizekas are speed. Waugh wants four lines, not just there consistently helping win games, four lines that can produce offensively. They have the ability on the back end to get the puck up quick. It's going to be quick breakouts. They have the goaltending. This is going to be a fast team. You mentioned it. Anthony Duclair might not be your stereotypical top line left winger, but with Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal, it seems like right now they've been playing together for years. That chemistry has been quickly made. They're flying out there. Not every game are they going to score 5 points, 6 points. We saw the other night against the Rangers, Barzal, a goal and 4 primary assists. That's not going to happen, but they're flying up the ice. The second line, Nelson doesn't get a lot of credit, but he's fast. Him and Palmieri, Sipakov, might not be the fastest skater. Well, and we'll get to it in a sec.
Well, let's talk about him, because I think he's been a little bit of the talk on the island, right? This 20-something, 26-year-old, like this is kind of like Kaprizov came over kind of later in his career. Guy had 31 goals in the KHL last year. That's a lot of goals for that league. It is. So what are we expecting from him? Are we expecting him to come in and have 75 points, have 30 goals in the National League? Like, what are the expectations for him?
Yeah, I think playing on the second line with Nelson and Palmieri, he won that job. He started on a AHL, NHL preseason lineup, then the fourth line, then the third line, landed on the second line. He's playing with two guys that scored 30-plus goals last year, right? So I'm not saying that Sipakov's going to light the lamp, maybe 15 to 20 goals, 20 to 25 assists you can expect. But he could be, he could be in the Calder conversation for sure. He is a rookie. I know people will say, well, he's too old, right? But Kaprizov did the same thing. And he's going to be in the power play unit, which is big for point production, right? This is an Islanders power play that's struggled to find consistency. But what Sipakov does, I mean, you've seen the highlights already. He's a menace behind the net and in front of goal. And
the scarecrow screen tactic is catching on, huh?
Yeah, it's tremendous.
How long is his leash going to be, though? Like, I always wonder that when a guy comes over and you've got, look, Patrick Waugh is he's not here to do a rebuild. Lou Lamoriello's not getting any younger. I mean, like, this team needs to win, right? Like, that they're not sitting here like we're rebuilding by any stretch of an imagination. So I'm always curious, like with a guy like Patty Waugh, he's such a fiery guy, he's old school. How long is this kid's leash going to be? Because there is going to be an adjustment period. Like, it's unfair to think any player who's played in Russia, who's played on bigger ice. I know they've shrunk the ice, but I was even talking to D'Angelo. How are the first couple of games? And, they played some of the lower end teams, and he's like, it's not real physical. There's not a lot of confrontation. The game doesn't happen as much in the high traffic areas. The game happens a lot more, on the peripherals. So, you got to expect an adjustment period. And I wonder, like, is this a thing where by the end of the second period, if it's not going well, he's on the fourth line and he's out in game two? Is that something you guys have asked or brought up with Patrick Waugh?
Yeah, I think he's going to give him time. I think when we talked to Waugh, he made it clear that he wants Palmieri and Nelson to take Sipakov under their wing. And Sipakov's been great with us in the room, but also Patrick Waugh said, yes, he doesn't know Russian and his English is a little broken, right? But he said that all he has to ask Sipakov in Russian is, do you understand? And Sipakov says, yes. He said, that's good enough for me. He wants to be better. He wants to learn. If you've watched the games, like you said, there is a transition period, right? But the way he's playing so far in preseason doesn't look like it seems like he's played in the NHL for 10 years. He's getting physical. He's driving the net. He's winning loose puck battles. He's doing all those things that maybe doesn't happen often enough in the KHL, where I think the NHL game fits his game better. And I think now he's using that. He's exploiting defenses. That power move the other day against the Rangers, I mean, that's a straight power move. And the Islanders haven't had a guy like that really drives the net with that force, getting a good shot off. But like we said before, playing behind the net. I can't remember the last time the Islanders had someone on the power play that could dish the puck behind the net like the way he's doing it and then go to the front and then open
Rob
up.
Trump.
Yeah. He's got high. This kid, I think, it'll be a transition, but his IQ, just watching him, knowing when to slow it down, him knowing when to push the pace, him knowing I'm not going to rush that pass. I'm going to take a second, make the right play. I think his IQ is going to cover a lot or mask a lot of his quote unquote issues that he has to get to establish to the NHL game, because he's very confident. And he seems to be every game and growing. The big knock on him early on in camp was the defensive game. Waugh said that he was letting the defense get behind him. And once Waugh told him that, the next game, guess what? He didn't allow that to happen. So he's a quick learner. His IQ, I think, is going to carry him. And this kid, again, 1 year ELC at $950,000. It was always a low risk, high reward move.
Yeah.
Now that he's playing on your second line and potentially your top power play unit in front, this could be a huge contract for the Islanders. Yes, they're going to have to pay him, but the good news is that he'll be an RFA. It's not like he goes for $8 million. And
let's just say it doesn't go well.
Right.
That's a contract that you can put in the American League and will knock out against your cap. What do you get? 115 that you can bury in the American League. So
yeah, but right now he's waiver exempt. I don't think he'll go to Bridgeport.
I'm just saying, worst case scenario, you called it a low risk, high reward move. And I completely agree, because again, like, you didn't give him $3 million. And if it doesn't work out, you've got a $2 million hit while he's playing in Bridgeport. So you're right. There's absolutely no downside to this type of deal. look, you have me sold, right? Like this kid sounds excited. You're doing a good job, but I'm curious. Like, is there enough depth in this lineup? JG Pageau's game has really dropped off. I mean, at least last year. I have not watched the Islanders in the preseason. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have. I have
Kyle McLean, Colby. Kyle McLean.
Thank you. Like, okay, you like to hear yourself talk. I get it, but do they have the depth? Like, Wahlstrom, he's been in and out of the doghouse more times than most players in the National Hockey League, right? I mean, he just hasn't really fit in there. Cizikas, like, what you're getting out of him. He's an honest player, but I don't know. Like, do they have enough in that third and that fourth line to find themselves in the playoffs this year? Are they a playoff team?
Yeah, I think part of it is how the Metro, this is probably the weakest the Metro has been in quite some time. So I'll say the Islanders are a playoff team. I think they have the depth, but I also don't think, quote unquote, it's going to be hard to make the playoffs as much as maybe in years past. I think it'll come down to the wire for a lot of these teams, but you look at that depth, and I think the biggest concern for me right now is that third line. Like you said, Pageau's regressed. We spoke to him at the end of last year, and he was brutally honest. I did not have a good year. I have to be better. Now, Simon Holmstrom is going to add speed to that line. They did have Engvall there last year at the end of the season. Holmstrom is a player that the Islanders fans are expecting to do well. He's been a defensive-minded player since joining the Islanders, but for the first time ever, we've seen confidence in his shot. He's got a wicked release. They all do. It's the NHL. Even, Colby, you had one, right? So, Laz, you didn't even get a chance to show it off. Relax.
Oh, nice.
Nice. So I think for Holmstrom, this is a big year, but you mentioned Wahlstrom, right? And this is a guy that we didn't really expect to make the roster. One part money-wise, with Engvall on waivers and going down to the minors, they had the cap space to put Wahlstrom on the roster, but Wahlstrom was the guy they drafted high. They expected him to be a legitimate goal-scoring sniper in this league. He hasn't turned into that. That being said, he has added physicality to his game that allows him to play on that line. If this was the regular fourth line and Martin was on the left, Cizikas was down the middle, Wahlstrom doesn't fit here, probably. But because of Cizikas, like you said, he has an honest game, hard forechecker. Laz, your boy, Johnny McLean, that's his dad, Kyle McLean. I mean, this guy really could score 15, 20 goals. This guy has that potential, but he's also defensively minded. So I think Waz hoping that consistent game, that 200-foot game, will help Wahlstrom and grow into that role. At this point, this is what Wahlstrom's going to be. I'm not going to say he's going to be a Cal Clutterbuck, crushing people left and right, but like Cal, he played an honest game. He was physical, but Cal probably had the first or second best shot on the Islanders. And when he had the chance, he usually made it count. So they're hoping for Wahlstrom that when he gets those lanes in games, he might get some power play 2 time, but they're hoping that Wahlstrom can play on that line and provide that offense. I think that this team is the most offensively depth team the Islanders have had in quite some time. It's no longer the top Matthew Barzal. If Barzal has a good game, they win. If Barzal has a bad game, they lose. That was like Tavares. When Tavares had a great game, Islanders won. When Tavares was bad, they lose. If that entire top line has a bad game, I think you have the depth, especially the depth scoring, where they could find ways to produce and win games 4-1, 5-1. The other thing, too, is under Waugh, there's no room to sit back. They did it under Trotz. Under Lane, they fell apart and blew. I think it was like 25 third-period leads last year.
Yeah, nuts.
It's disgusting, and that can't happen. And I think under Waugh, the players have bought in that's not going to happen. The whole point of training camp for Waugh was pretty much to break them down mentally and build them that back up the way he wants. Whereas when they have the back-to-back, so they have the third-period leads, they're not sitting back to win. They're going for the kill. We saw it a couple of times in preseason, like we saw against the Rangers. So I think this team has the depth to score goals, but also put games away. And I think the Islanders have been missing that, where late in games, the top 6 isn't going out there because they want the defensive lines. Now you can put any line out there and go for the kill rather than sit back. So yeah, I think this team is deep enough to make it. Also with the Metro, I think being wide open, that certainly helps a lot.
Talk about some in-depth analysis. That was like a 4-minute answer.
I think you're drinking way too much Kool-Aid out there on Long Island. Look, one question.
I have one more though before we get him off here.
One question in the chat about Sorokin. Okay. Yeah. Peter Dempsey asked us, what do you think about Sorokin this year? Does he return to form? Are we going to see a split? Like what do we expect in goal?
Yeah, well, the good news is he's 100% healthy, ready to go. I don't think he'll start opening night. I think Varlamov will get the first couple, and then when Sorokin's ready, he comes in. But yeah, first off, they're paying him to have a bounce back, right? First year of an 8-year deal at $8.25 annually. And he could say all he wants that he wasn't hurt last year. He did suffer the offseason back injury, had offseason back surgery. But I tend to think he was hurt or there was a minor issue going on last year. His movement sucked. His rebound control was terrible. It was a bad year. I think you see a bounce back. One, his confidence is going to be better. He's healthy, but also two, his WAS system. A lot less shots, a lot more outside shots. When you saw the Islanders win the Jennings Trophy under Barry Trotz with Grice and Varlamov there, Grice and Leonard, it's because most of those shots came from the outside. The goalies had to be good, but they didn't have to be saving every single save to win hockey games. And I think for Sorokin, that's going to be mentally good for him. The last couple of years, he's legitimately carried the team on his back. That didn't lead to the back injury, but this is a Sorokin that the Islanders expect to be a Vezina caliber guy. So I think he bounces back. I'm not going to say he has his best career numbers, but I think it's going to be significantly better than what we saw a year ago.
All right. Well, speaking of significantly better numbers, I want to finish off with this one. And I want to make a little friendly bet, including All-American Burger. And I'll include a friend of the show, or a loyal listener to the show, Ariel Cornfield, who always comments on this show. And we love her feedback and her take on the Islanders. I actually saw the reply to your tweet coming on this show that Colby is known as the Matt Barzal is not elite guy. Shout out to the guy, Mike Dino Dangle. That was the comment that I saw. But I want to make a bet with you because – I think last year was Barzal's first season where he was a point per game since his rookie year. And Mika Zibanejad for the Rangers has caught a lot of heat on his production, especially last year at 5-on-5. I want to bet you, and I will take you to All-American Burger if Matt Barzal has more points than Mika Zibanejad. But that's a separate thing. I really want to ask, if Barzal does not produce at a point per game, or at least put up, let's say, 80 points again, there's no excuse, right? Because he's playing with elite talent now, or really good talent. Maybe I won't drop the E word because Colby gets mad when I do that, but he finally has the support around.
Well, let me ask you, are you calling Bo Horvat an elite player? Are you calling Duclair?
I'd say Bo Horvat's an elite goal scorer. I'd say Bo Horvat is an elite goal scorer. I would say that confidently. Yeah. And Anthony Duclair is a really good player.
Yeah, obviously Barzal wants to have a great season, but he wants the team to win, right? If Barzal is not going to produce 80 points, then he's got to be doing stuff well defensively. Not everything lands on the stat sheet, right? If the Islanders win a lot of games, they third or second in the Metro, and Barzal is under 80 points. That does mean he's doing other things right to help the team win. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's going out there. And yes, Duclair might take some goals or assists away from him, but it doesn't matter. If that line's producing and Barzal is playing a part in that, sure, stats are great. Individual stats are great, but I think Barzal is going to have a big year with these guys.
think he's still a 25-goal, 60-assist guy. I think 80 points is I think that's a very doable number for him. And I think he'll have 25
last year.
He will have better players around him. Noah Dobson, I think he's going to have an all-star, another all-star type of season. I know he got snubbed last year, but he should be 100%, talked about at the top of the game. All right. So last question, we got Mike Rupp, who's about to join us here. So where are the Islanders going to finish in the Metro? That is my final question to you before we let you go.
Yeah, I'm thinking third in the Metro, first wild card. Similar around there. I do think the Rangers are going to win the Metro. I think the Devils, if Jack Hughes could stay healthy, will finish second. I think the Islanders will be there. I don't think it'll take till second to last game of the year to clinch that spot. I think consistency under Waugh could get them to third in the Metro, even second, but around there.
So you think they're going to jump the Carolina Hurricanes this year?
Yeah, I think Carolina had a horrific offseason. I don't trust their goaltending. It could surprise me. That's why we love hockey. There's so much parity, but I do think the Islanders have a better year than Carolina.
It's interesting because I think Washington is going to be closer to the Islanders than the Islanders are going to be to Carolina, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I like when all the teams in the Northeast are good. It makes hockey more interesting, at least for me living here. All the games are on at the same, 7 p.m., 7:30. So
he's not up late enough for the West Coast game, so he needs the East Coast teams to be good.
If you want to follow the Islanders, follow Stefen on Twitter, X. You can see him all over Johnny's, always going at it with him on social media. Thanks for coming on today, and we'll check in with you here when the Islanders start the season on a 10-game winning streak. All right.
Thanks, Colby. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thanks, Steph. Appreciate you. All right, well, let's bring on Rupper because I know Rupper has been waiting patiently. Very excited to talk to him. Dressed up for us, too. And first things first, Rupper, I want to say congrats on the new kid on the block. Very exciting.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, very exciting news. But summer was good, I imagine.
Wait, hold on. What did I miss?
They're having a kid.
It's a lot, buddy.
Oh, okay. Congrats. You had another one, or?
Yeah, just kidding. Yeah, we got a baby on the way, so we're excited.
Oh, congratulations,
coming up in
man.
January. Thank you.
What number is that for you?
That's 5.
Wow. So
yeah.
you're building a small army is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, exactly. But
This is your right shot D.
Yes.
But yeah, I imagine summer's been busy. Obviously there's a lot going on in Pittsburgh this year in the offseason. Kind of wanted to focus on the Penguins with you because I'm curious just what this team is and what their identity is right now, because it seems to be a lot of confusion, whether it's, time to rebuild or just one last kick at the can.
Yeah, I mean, hang on one sec. No, they're I've got the same questions. I think a lot of people do. You know what I mean? Like what is it? Who are they? What can they do? I like to pride myself on being in this business, trying not to play the homer card, right? Like I work for the Penguins, I call their games. I will say this, like, I think the entire season depends on if Evgeny Malkin and Erik Karlsson are going to do what's right for the team on any given night, rather than what they're just used to doing. They've got to adjust their game, and I think that'll trickle down through the lineup when they see the veterans, the Hall of Famers, do that. And to me, that's where it's at. I mean, I expect Tristan Jarry came into camp, I should say, in great shape. He looks solid. I mean, that's a key cog in all of this as well. And you know what, Sid is like, I can never count them out. I mean, for me to say they're not going to make the playoffs, I won't say that. They may not. I think they're going to be a bubble team on getting in. But Sid, I mean, he had the greatest 36-year plus season in NHL history last year with 94 points. So, I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see what kind of plays out. Some nice surprises in camp, but you got a lot of work to do.
What have you thought of Rutger McGroarty so far? Because it looks like he's going to be in opening night lineup. He's a friend of the show. We had him on. There was a whole saga surrounding him, and I think I looked the other night. He had like 3 points in the final preseason game, or second to last preseason game, and I texted him and I go, "Hey, 3 points in the National League, no big deal." And he wrote me back, "It's preseason, man." And I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "All right." I was like, "Good for you."
No, he's what they need. I love this move as far as Kyle Dubas going out and doing this, because we know that this franchise has lacked kind of the young, impactful players, the ones that can maybe play in the top 6, especially up front. And he fits that bill. I mean, it's right now with Brian Rust starting on the IR. I think that opens up a slot here, and it gives them an opportunity. So you guys know it's about what you do with that opportunity. But I like. You know what? I'm new to him. Like, I'm not huge on the college scene, so I anything I've seen on him, I've read on him, right? Like, I haven't really seen much until preseason. And fellas, like he's kind of like a bull out there, right? Like, pretty stocky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love that stuff. And, anytime you can just protect the puck and hang on to pucks, I think that's a huge weapon in the NHL, especially if you're a young player and you're capable of doing that. So we'll see what happens with him. I think he's got all the tools to be playing top 6 for this team, and he's going to get an opportunity to start the season there.
He's an old school player upper, and he's a coach's kid. His dad is a general manager in the USHL. I actually played for him in junior hockey, his father, and I've known Rut. He's like one of those rink rats. He grew up in locker rooms. He is an old school throwback type of player. Like I always say, my favorite part about him is that he will literally punch you in the mouth on his way to the net to bury like a rebound goal in a third period. Yeah. It's just like how he is.
And that's the point though, that I think is, especially nowadays, it may be coming from a coach's son and having that old school mentality. That's something that generally younger players have to learn, and it takes years. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, so we all know now it's skill, it's speed, it's all these things. You got to have a good set of hands. You got to be able to process the game and all that stuff offensively. You're not playing in the NHL unless you're doing that to some degree. Everybody has that. Well, what he has and what you're explaining there, I love it, Colby, because not many young guys can do that. Right. Yeah. So if you get that, now all of a sudden you get the trust of a coach, and you get put in situations that maybe you wouldn't be, because you're hanging on to pucks. You're not turning the puck over, and you're willing to play in the trenches a little bit.
Mm-hmm. My last Pittsburgh Penguins question before we kind of hop around the Metro just a little bit is in regards to Mike Sullivan. And we don't like talking about guys' jobs on here, but, I know there are 12 new coaches, I believe, in the NHL this season, which is a lot. It's almost half the league has a new head coach. you have to think with the way Pittsburgh has gone in the last 2 years and their direction in the future, is Mike Sullivan right now like the lead candidate to be on the hot seat as far as coaches go? I can't think of anyone else really, Rupper. I mean, we talked about last year a little bit with Rod Brindamore potentially, just with Carolina's disappointment in the playoffs, but he signs an extension in Carolina. So you kind of look at the teams that have been, very good for quite some time and then trending downwards. And to me, Sullivan might be that guy. Can you think of anyone else right now that might be ahead of him?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point, especially when you have those franchises that kind of set the standard where if you're not making the playoffs, that's not acceptable. And we know this team has missed the last couple seasons. That's fair. I think that it's one of those situations like Rod Brindamore where you sit there and if you start kind of letting your mind go there and think, all right, are we going to find a better coach? I mean, I don't think you will, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's part of it. And plus what he's done there and the way that the veterans love him, right? I think this is a challenging year for Mike Sullivan because I think this group needs to get squeezed a little bit. And whatever that means, I'm not inside that room. But last year, they had some good moments and then they had some really bad ones. And it's like you were sitting there watching, you're waiting for a reaction within the group. And it didn't seem like it happened, right? So again, going back to what I said before, whether it's the Erik Karlsson and Evgeny Malkin situations, can you get more out of these guys? Have them maybe take less as far as what they're used to point production wise and do what's best for the betterment of the team on a nightly basis. I mean, that's going to be the biggest challenge. So yeah, I mean, certainly his name would probably come up. I think he's probably good to go. He's safe.
Yeah. I think he'll finish it with Sid, right? Till Sid's gone, he'll stay. But
yeah, I think, Sid in that core group, Letang, Malkin, that's the guy they want behind the bench. And he's a fantastic coach. So I do think it's going to be a challenging year for him though.
I will say this, Rubber, before I start moving around the Metro with you a little bit. I know you only have a couple more minutes and we'll get you out of here. But look, I watched this happen in Philadelphia in the NFL. The Eagles moved on from Andy Reid, not because they could find a better coach, but just because he had been there for so long and his voice got tired. And look, you could say similar things about John Cooper when the day that comes for him. Yeah. Like it'll just not because you're going to find someone better, but just sometimes
new direction.
For whatever reason, a new voice has to be heard. So I love Sully. He's a BU guy. He's got Quinny there with him now, another BU guy. They've got, I think Quinny will do a great job with that D-core. I think he's so well suited to be working with just the D-core. The details, I think he'll get more. I think he'll help Jack St. Ivany's development. I think he'll get the best out of Matt Grzelcyk, who was his captain at BU. So there's already a relationship. Karlsson and Quinny had a great relationship out in San Jose, had one of his best years. So I do think some of those factors could come into play there in Pittsburgh. And, look, it's good for hockey to have Sidney Crosby be playing in big games. It's just good for the game of hockey, right? So I hope you're right. Like, I hope the Penguins surprise a lot of people this year.
Yeah, and I think that, I know you guys said you go on to the Metro, but like, for me, it's New Jersey and New York, the Rangers. And after that, it's everybody else.
I agree.
And I would put the Penguins in there with everybody else. Maybe I like certain teams a tad more, but they've got an opportunity for that third spot because I think that third spot in the Metro is wide open.
Let me ask you that, though, because that's a narrative, too, that's kind of picking up. Everyone seems to be down on Carolina. Obviously their offseason moves weren't in the positive, but to me, they seem like a team where it's plug and play. The standard is set, the foundation is set, and you could put anyone in a Hurricanes jersey and they'll play up to that standard, similar to a Boston Bruins team. I feel like 2 years ago where Boston sets that NHL record with points, everyone was like, oh, they're going to get out to a shitty start. No Marchand, no McAvoy. It's going to be a down year, and then they go on a tear. I don't know if I think Carolina is as weak as everyone else seems to think. Their goaltending is probably the question there with Anderson and Kochetkov. Like, who will be the number one guy if they don't split?
Yeah, but it's serviceable enough. I mean, there are worse goalie situations in the National Hockey League than that one.
But you don't think they could surprise a little bit, Rupper, with Carolina and be that 1, 2, 3 like we've seen?
So when I mentioned that there's a team maybe that's a tick higher than maybe the rest of the group, that Carolina is the one I'm thinking of, right? Like that's one that I would, if I was a betting man, I'd probably put them at 3 in the Metro. The thing with when you look at what they've lost, and they lost a lot, but to your point, Johnny, like they still got a lot there, right? Like they can't forget who they are, and they've been one of the more consistent teams, especially in the regular season, that we've seen over the last number of years.
I also don't really count Gensel as a loss. Like he was barely there.
Right. That's true. I find that if this makes any sense at all, the way I look at the structure of their team right now, for me, that screams regular season. They can have sustainability in regular season. I don't love that roster right now in the playoffs, but you know, if they grow this year and you know, they could turn into something else, or they can make some moves as well. But that's a pretty consistent group there still under Rod Brindamore. Like they're going to be in the hunt. They're going to be in the mix. I think there's going to be a separation between them and the New York Rangers. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as tight. And I think the Rangers came back a little bit too, right? Like, but I just think that Carolina, they should be in that 3 spot if I was a betting man.
Yeah. Well, look,
one last comment, Colby, just really quick, if I can. Just a quick follow-up, because I saw Ben Benya in the chat just say goaltending is what killed them last year. And I fully disagree, because what killed them against the Rangers was their power play. They didn't score a power play goal until the end of game 4. Brady Shea blast from the point. But now they have Shane Gostisbehere, who Colby and I talked about yesterday, who's one of the best power play QBs, or at least most underrated power play QBs in the league. Like I think he'll really
dynamic. He's dynamic on the blue line. He brings an element that they just haven't had. You know, I know Tony DeAngelo had a little bit of that role. But, you know, I don't think he was, you know, he didn't play much last year, just the reality until the playoffs. Jack Ross, I just think goals are going to be hard to come by, especially come playoff time. Like, who are you leaning on? You know, I don't know. It's why I feel the same way you do about these guys, Rupper.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes to the same narrative and the same story it's always been with these guys. Like, I'm not going to play that whole game. Is Sebastian Aho a star? Is he not a star? I mean, he's an awesome player, right? Like,
we love that one.
That's a little bit like old hat. Like people just kind of go into that. But it's who's the next star? Like, is Svechnikov going to be a star? Like right now, he's a stud. Right? He's a big body. He could do a little bit of everything.
I like that.
Got some injuries. There's a difference between being a stud and being a star. Stud to me is like, oh, he could be something more. No, he needs to be a star. And if he does that, it changes a lot. And then the other guy, you know, Marty Necas is, I've said this for years, most talented guy on that roster. I don't think he's learned how to play the game under Rod Brindamore, and they're working with him. They're trying to get him. And that's another guy that between those two guys can change the whole outlook of this team, in my opinion.
Stud versus star. Look, by who?
I know you got to go here, so I'm going to leave you with one final question, and I'm going to put you on the hot seat for it. How many points is Johnny's best friend, the guy who has on? He bought a whole Alexi Lafreniere bedspread for his new apartment in New York. How many points is Johnny's hero going to have this season?
Well, I will say this. I went on Daily Face-Off like I normally do on the daily basis, checking some updated lines. And oh my God, they have that line listed as the #1 line for the New York Rangers. Is that good or bad, Johnny? Like we've been forever. I mean, it's been the #1 line, but it's never been on paper the #1 line. And I sit here and I look, I'm like, holy shit, we're doing this. So now there's some pressure here. I don't know. I'm going to say, I don't think Artemi Panarin doesn't get, what do you have, 49 goals?
120 points last year.
Yeah, 120 points. I just don't see that happening. And that's okay. He's still going to probably be in around that 100-point plateau. I'll say Laugh is, what did Laugh finish with last year?
57.
57?
Yeah.
He'll break 70.
26 5-on-5 goals, 26 even strength goals.
He'll break 70. I think that's pretty generous. I mean, if people are saying 80, like that's a big step. Like that's a lot of change. So I'll give him 70 points.
Are you thinking like a 35-35 split? He's been pretty like he's last year you could see like he scores, he's not one dimensional as far as a goal scorer as an assist guy. He kind of divvies it up pretty evenly.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'd say it's pretty even. I love players like that too, right? Yeah. When you have the stat column looking exactly the same, pretty much from goals and assists.
Brady Chuck.
Yeah, and you know the other thing with him too, and I love this part about him, and maybe it's from toiling around in the bottom six a little bit. He finishes his checks, man. He'll throw his body around a lot for this Rangers team too. So I love that. But yeah, I think he's going to have an awesome year. Keep moving in that right direction. I'll say about 70 points there.
Okay.
Can I ask you one last one in regards to that too? I know you got to hop here, but what would you do as far as that first power play unit goes? Because that's going to be the biggest question for the Rangers is at what point are you now holding back Lafreniere if you're not putting him on that power play? Like what's more important, you know, to have the balance or to have one unit that stays out there for a minute 15? And if they don't get it done, then your second unit
most teams are rolling like.
But Lafreniere though, I'm saying Lafreniere specifically, but it's Lafreniere specifically.
It's a tough.
If he's not seeing that ice time, what does that do for his growth?
It's tough. He deserves it, but at the same time, that entire power play design is only designed for one lefty, and that's Chris Kreider in front of the net. Yeah. Like the way they are set up right now and the way they've had success, I don't see there being a lefty there. I mean, you could put him in Artemi's spot. I don't know how that works. I mean, Artemi's pretty freaking special in that spot, right? Yeah. And the way that he changes angles. You got to try it, though. Just like last year. I think we're at the point here. They pulled off the Band-Aid with Laff last year. We thought they were maybe going to pull off the Band-Aid with Kakko. He got hurt. And, you know, there's other things, obviously, there that you're still waiting on him. But maybe this is the next little bandage that they have to pull off on the power play. You got to smoke it out and see what he can do out there. Look, he deserves first power play minutes.
There's also going to be injuries. You know, I mean, I have a hard time seeing them going wire to wire.
Let me ask you this. How would you feel if 20 came off the power play? Even though he's the all-time friend. I mean, but Johnny, he's I'm
not touching that unit. I've said it. I'm not touching it.
All right. That would be an option that I would kick around as well. But, you know, you got to get him out there. You got to find a way.
He's the best net front guy in the league right now.
Yeah, and he would be on the second unit too, and maybe bump your second unit a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I don't even know if it's a good problem to have, honestly. It sucks.
And look, but like I'm saying, you're not going wire to wire 2 years in a row with the same power play group. Something will change. They'll go cold. Yeah. Someone will get injured. Unfortunately,
they were seventh 2 years ago. Last year they were third. What do you mean?
We're never rooting for that. So I'm just saying, like, something will happen. Your boy will get first line power play minutes at some point this year. Johnny, you're going to feel good snuggling
but at what cost?
In your Lafreniere bed sheets. All is good. Rupper, you're the best. Yeah. You can see Rupper pretty much anywhere and everywhere. Pittsburgh Penguins, NHL Network. This guy literally does it all. Surprised you're not calling
a beer on TNT or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Beer line, Mr. Brawl.
We will see you guys around. Thanks for having me on, and we'll catch up again here soon.
All right. See you, Rupper.
You're good. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Where do we go from here, though? Because we kind of touched on a couple different teams, Colby. Which team?
Well, let's flush out the Rangers. Let's finish up because I know you've been at training camp a little bit. I know you're in the trenches there. And I know somebody asked us earlier, why did Rempe get sent to the American League? They make a bunch of paper moves.
Coming right back up.
Exactly. Yeah. He's coming right back up. Let me ask you this, like, who's surprised you the most in camp? Because there's a couple of names that look like they're going to be involved in opening night that if you're not a Rangers fan that has followed camp, you may not be overly, you might say, who's that guy? Who's playing on defense? What's going on? So, Johnny, why don't you give us a couple of your surprises and kind of bring us up to speed on the Rangers roster?
Yeah, it's funny, actually. My buddy Fitz, who's a huge New York sports fan, but like pays attention season by season. So right now, I think he's locked in on the Mets. He tweeted yesterday, like, who the hell is this Mancini guy? Victor Mancini is going to play third pair, it looks like, with Zach Jones right now. He's a Nebraska Omaha product. Had a pretty good career or start to his career in the AHL last year with Hartford, but he's really impressed out of camp. Big body. I think he's like 6'5". Can shoot the puck, can skate, quick feet for a big guy, throws the body, very physical. And he's really been the one guy that's been the story out of New York Rangers training camp. Another guy is Adam Edstrom. And I look at their fourth line, Colby. Their fourth line is going to be Edstrom, Sam Carrick, and Matt Rempe. That is a bruising fourth line. Like, I'm not going to say they're going to produce it all, but they will be a fourth line in the NHL that gets talked about a lot this year because those are two big bodies on the wings, and Sam Carrick is a bit of a pest in the middle. So
you got Edstrom. It's not going to be a fun line to play against. No. And if Lavi can find a way to get those guys out on the ice for 12 minutes, 12 to 13, let's say anywhere from 10 to 13 minutes. Let's put a nice little that will be a very heavy, difficult line to play against. Look, everybody's heard raving reports about what Rempe did with his summer. He lived in Connecticut. He trained with Ben Prentice. Look,
It's only 2 months though. Everyone's like freaking out.
No,
it's really 2 months.
I'm going to disagree with you on that because I've seen what Ben Prentice can do. I know guys that have gone and spent a summer with him.
He's in great shape.
It's a whole nother level of how, detailed of training you get with Ben Prentice. It's not group training. It's specific. It's either one-on-one or one-on-two. I know guys who have done it. It's paid off for those guys. Let me ask you about this, though, moving off of Rempe. What do you see for Kaapo Kakko this year, Johnny? Like, where does he fit into this? And also, what's the latest on Jimmy Vesey? I know he's injured. But what are we looking at here? So at least 14 days, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lower body injury, I believe I saw.
I think so. I haven't talked to Jimmy about it. I haven't really been at training camp the last couple of days just because I'm busy with the move and everything. And when we do our show, it's tough to get out to Westchester because, they start practicing during preseason at like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. So I don't really get there in time. But with Kaapo Kakko, I spoke to him one-on-one about 2 weeks ago. And this is the first training camp for him where he's coming in with no, I guess, ceiling to reach. He kind of knows his role right now as a third line guy playing responsibly. And he's kind of taken that, with I don't want to say chip on his shoulder, but he's also owned it. Like he knows that he has to do what a third line guy would do for the betterment of the team. Obviously, he wants to play top six and get power play minutes, but it hasn't worked out for him, in the previous 5 years.
So what you're saying is he no longer
he knows his role.
Kakko, the second overall pick. He's now Kaapo Kakko, the NHLer who
the middle six NHLer right now
plays on a middle six role. Okay,
correct.
Good for him.
And that line, listen, he's not happy about it. He obviously wants to be that guy.
We'll go do something about it then.
Of course, yes. But Riley Smith was, picked up this offseason to fill that role with Kreider and Zibanejad. Hopefully he is the guy that answers the question there because no one's done it since Frank Petrano was here. And before that, it was Buchnevich, but he got traded. So Kaapo Kakko right now on the third line with Will Cooley and Filipino. And to me, Filipino was a massive loss last year. That's a 20-goal scorer that played, I think, 10 regular season games, got into a couple playoff games, wasn't his 100% self. So, if he could find his game again, which he has in the preseason, there's been some scary moments where he got hit and looked like he got hurt. It could be a tough year as far as him going physically. But to me, this Ranger story is still the same. Third best power play last year, third best in the penalty kill, best goalie in the NHL. So they're going to be fine as long as their special teams are fine. But they need that extra 5-and-5 production from not only their third line of Hedl, Cooley, and Kakko, but obviously Mika Zibanejad too has a lot of eyes on him after only scoring 12 even strength goals last year.
Okay, so couple other questions that I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to get to the big one. I'm going to save that one for the end. But before I get into these questions, if you're enjoying this episode, make sure you like our YouTube page, especially, again, if you're on YouTube, give this episode a like. It helps grow our show. I know I'm a little bit of a broken record with this stuff, but if you're in the chat, I know a lot of you are pretty fired up today. The chat is like kind of buzzing. It's like moving so fast. I'm having a hard time completely tracking it. But give us a like on this episode if you like it. Make sure you subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube page. We put up the channel lineups. There's lots going on the YouTube page. So look,
can I ask you a question first?
Go for it.
It's not even from me. It's from Ariel Cornfield, I've seen Ariel asking this question all summer, and I think she's put it in this chat 3 times already today. So I just want to talk to you about it because I think you'll give an unbiased answer. Who is the better overall player, Mika Zibanejad or Matt Barzal? I don't think it's easy.
I don't think that's an easy question to answer. It's funny because I think I would put them in a similar category as far as like the way that I view them as NHL players. I don't think either of them are elite players, but I think they're both superstars. Like I think they're both stars. I think Matt Barzal.
Studs, not stars.
What'd you say?
Studs, not stars. I love that line from Rupper.
I think Matt Barzal probably has more individual skill. But I think Zibanejad probably has a more well-rounded game, and he's bigger and he's stronger.
Better shot.
Look, I think that's a really hard question to answer, Ariel, just like straight up one for one. I think an easier question for me to answer would be, all right, like you're picking a team, like you have one final spot. It would kind of depend on what you're looking for. Look, it's a hard.
I will tell you what though. I think like I agree with you. I think Zibanejad offers more right now just because he has much more of a scoring threat to him than Barzal does. So I would lean Zibanejad, but I do think Barzal is a better fit for the Islanders than Zibanejad would be. Like, I think Barzal would produce more points in that spot than Mika would if he were to go play on the Islanders.
But I will say this. I think Barzal 100% has more skill. Like, I think he's
he's unbelievable.
His
I love Matt Barzal.
His skill, better. I think that, Mika Zibanejad, I don't know. Like that, I might lean Matt Barzal, honestly. If you're saying to me you have to pick one, I think I would lean Barzal. I think I would, right? But it's a great question from Ariel. Yeah. I do. And look, we've given the Islanders a lot of love today. I mean, Stefen Rosner came on here and said they were going to win the President's Trophy. So, we've given them. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm kidding. All right. So look, let me get to the final question here. Okay. We know Lindgren's out. Nothing new there, unfortunately. Not making fun of the guy, but him getting hurt is kind of become a thing here. Let me ask you about the big elephant in the room. All right. And that's the goaltender, Igor Shesterkin. And you can pretend like it's not an elephant. You can act surprised at the question because you looked at me like, oh, what's the question?
I thought it was going to be something else. I just didn't know.
How are you feeling about your goaltender going into the last year of his contract, openly stating, I will not negotiate in season, coming up to be a UFA? How are you feeling about this? Because look,
we've talked about this all fucking summer.
I don't think enough people are uncomfortable about a situation that is uncomfortable.
Well, what are you supposed to say? Like, it's going to be an ongoing conversation until it's not, but nothing's changed. Like I said it before, I said it previously this summer. Like, I think that number is going to end up being 11.7. Like, that's just kind of what I think. It'll be a higher salary than Artemi Panarin. It'll be the highest goaltender paid in the NHL. And that's what he deserves. I'll continue to say that. Now that Swayman's number came out and maybe that $23 million signing bonus would lower, Igor's AAV, if that's something that can be negotiated. I still don't really fully understand how the bonus stuff works when it comes to AAV and whatnot. So it's tough for me to sit here and explain that. But yeah, I won't be nervous, I think, until 2 weeks before the deadline. I'm confident that the Rangers will do whatever.
Before what deadline?
The trade deadline. I'm confident that the Rangers will do whatever they can to keep Igor Shesterkin. And I'm confident that he'll play well enough because it is a contract year for him and it is a big year for the team to earn that money. And hopefully they get something done by deadline time. Post deadline, I will be sweating my ass off and I will be nervous. But until then, there's no reason to be.
Because the thing that I would say is if the trade deadline comes and goes, and look, I'm not really looking at the trade deadline because you're not trading this guy at the trade deadline unless they get into an FU match this season and Igor Shesterkin literally says, I will not play here next year. Otherwise, there's no reality where they're trading him at the trade deadline. So, but I'm just saying, like, I would be very nervous and uncomfortable as the season goes along, because at that point, the closer he gets to being a UFA, the closer he gets to getting more than he should. And as a player, you're like, why wouldn't I go to market? Why wouldn't I at least get to July 1 and then make the Rangers overpay? Like, if the Rangers were to offer him $10.5 million today, right? 8 years, $10.5 million. I'm making this up, right? And he doesn't want to take it. That tells you he's looking for that 11.7 number. Now, if he's looking for 11.7 and he's not getting it, why wouldn't he go test the open market? And that would scare the shit out of me. You lose your franchise goal. Like, you do not want your franchise goaltender going to the open market. You don't want him dipping his toe in. You don't want him seeing what else is out there. You do not want that, because there are going to be teams with better cap situations that can pay him more money.
We have a comment in the chat from NVitali21. Might be a hot take, but I think Igor wants money more than he wants to stay in New York. Going to be up to the front office to decide how high they're willing to go. I fully agree. And as he should. He's 28 years old. This is going to be probably his last, long-term contract, which it should be. So why not go for the money? I don't blame him. And anywhere Igor goes, he'll turn that team into a contender. Maybe not a Stanley Cup contender, but a competitive contender. Like, that's how good this guy is. So I don't blame him if he wants to take the money more than staying in New York. Like, why would he not?
Yeah. I think I think I would agree with that. I think this is a guy who I think, unless they're willing to step up and give him a goalie setting contract, he's going open market. Otherwise, this deal would have gotten done. There's absolutely no reason for him to negotiate during the regular season. There's no reason for him to take a deal in the regular season. It's done. Like, you started the season, you didn't get the deal done. Why not go to July 1 now? I think
you know what scares me? Just looking at contracts, both goalies in Vegas are upcoming UFAs.
So look, people will move mountains to clear the space to get Igor Shesterkin. And I think I saw New York Marine with a comment in the chat, and he said he's concerned about the Loff upcoming contract. But the thing with him is, Lafreniere is an RFA, so he's under team control. Again, we've talked about the difference between guys that are, going for a UFA deal versus an RFA deal. Even if they're the same talent, they're the same level of superstar, UFA deals are sweeter than RFA deals because, there's no team control. There's the open market. And look, in the world we live, the open market is where you get your money. So I think it's a massive story. I'm going to be reminding you about it probably weekly. I think between that and the fact that, you're rooting on your boy to get to 100. I think we'll be obviously keeping a very close eye on the New York Rangers this year. So, Johnny, before we finish the Metro here, I'm going to ask you one question.
We got 3 teams that we haven't even talked about.
I know we're going to get to them, but I'm saying before we move on from the New York Rangers, and we knew we'd take a while on the Rangers. That's okay. We're not in a rush today. It seems like people are enjoying it. Does seem like people are enjoying the show today because the chat is wildly active. So that's always a great sign. Johnny, how many points is your boy Alexis Lafreniere going to get this year? What are we at? What are we thinking? And are you planning on washing your Lafreniere bedspread if he gets hot, or are you just going to keep it, for good luck purposes?
I don't think he'll hit 70. I thought Rupper was actually very kind to say that, just because if he's not getting consistent power play one time, it's so hard to do that. I'm saying 67. That's the number I'll go with. 10 points higher than last year. I do think I posted a 13-minute video thanks to Dmitry Filipovich, who always does those like 20-minute highlight reels of the plays Lafreniere set up last year. Grade A chances for himself, grade A chances for his line mates that did not go in. And I thought, honestly, if he had a little more luck go his way, he could have had 70 last year, but it's going to be tough this year. And like Rupper said too, I don't think Panarin's getting 49 goals. I don't think Panarin's getting 120 points. I think his over-under right now is set at 33.5 goals for Artemi Panarin, which seems about right. For me, that 67-point window, 65 would be massive progress, but it's hard to, look at a guy who, sure, gets first-line minutes, but isn't out there for the 5-on-4, 5-on-3 to put up 70. I think it's just, it's too hard. There's not enough opportunity or enough ice time. If that changes and he gets the consistent power play time, my opinion might change. But I don't think there's going to be any regression from last year. I think his number's only going to go up. But 30 goals this year is what I'll say, and whatever the math is, 37 assists for 67 points.
How many goals did he have last year?
28.
Yeah. Okay. I think
it's a great year.
30, I think 30 is doable, and I think he's going to get more time on the top power play than people are like. Than you're worried about.
I'm hoping he does.
I think he's going to. I think he's going to end up on the power play more than we're talking about, than we're thinking. We heard Rupper's opinion on it. You have your opinion on it. I think he's going to end up on the power play more. Again, I know it's going to be so annoying. Every time he scores, you're going to tweet me, and then all your Rangers fans are I'm just going to have to mute Twitter when the Rangers play every night. So, all right, let's move on. Let's go to Singsy's squad.
Yeah, that's your jersey, because Singsy's been waiting patiently. I know he had some meetings.
Look, this is a team we probably should have started with, right? Yeah. Because this looks like the team potentially to beat in the Metro. Like, I'm thinking Devils Rangers are going to be slugging it out to see who wins.
They play the fucking Sabres. You're acting like me. Don't get too emotional. The Devils aren't a wagon because they beat Buffalo twice. They're still good. Don't get me wrong.
You have the floor.
The Devils' first line, listen, Meyer, Bratt, he moved the meeting to 11. I love Singsy. He's the best. Timo Meyer, Jesper Bratt, Jack Hughes. Great first line. They had a great goal in that second game. Jack Hughes makes a sick play in the breakout, dances over a Sabre, then kicks it to Jesper Bratt, who does the heel-to-heel duck walk and goes around the net, finds Timo Meyer for a wide open net, like basically wraparound pass, even though I think the wraparound was a shot attempt that Brett whiffed on. But this Devils team is good. Listen, the one thing though that I will say was not impressed by their power play. They went 1 for 6 in the 2 games against Buffalo. Seamus Casey, credit to him. Incredible first 2 games in the NHL. He's going to be a stud in the blue line. Scores a beautiful goal for his first career goal.
That goal was
sick.
So,
he did that so many times in Michigan too.
I was just going to say that goal is like very, very on brand for him. That little stutter play, and he pulls it out. I mean, we've seen him do that on the blue line so many times. Look, they're going to have they're like, who's going to come out? You know, when Jesus, I'm like, all these names today are like leaving. When Hughes comes back in, like all these names are just like have been leaving me. I couldn't remember the John Cooper's name. I couldn't remember. Like it's just I'm not dialed on names today. But who's gonna come out when Hughes comes back? Like if these guys are healthy, like they have a bunch of studs, young studs. Too.
Yeah. But you know, Jonathan Kovacevic, who actually played against at Merrimack, Sheldon Keefe called him Kovechkin. And, you know, he'll come out, even though he had a pretty good showing in his first couple games, 6'5", right shot defenseman, big boy.
And who else? When
I got to think Simone Nemitz. I got to think him.
Really?
You know, I don't know. Seamus Casey, again, like he adds that power play element to like
I understand that, but you've got Dougie Hamilton and you're going to have Luke Hughes back. Pesci's also a guy who can absolutely blast the puck on the power play. Like he figures into at least one of your 2 power play units. And then again, look, Seamus Casey, great opening weekend, but you know how these things happen. Like you don't just start as a young defenseman in the NHL and just go straight up a mountain. Like there's going to be peaks and valleys. He's going to come in and out of the lineup at times. Like it's never that smooth. Great start. Not surprising. We've talked about how good this kid is on this show all last year. We did. I even said I didn't think he should sign in Jersey because I thought it was too crowded. I still think it's too crowded. Where is he going to play when Hughes comes back and Pesci comes back? I don't know. Like, I think they're pretty high on Nemec. Nemec has a lot more experience pro than him already. So I think that's a very crowded blue line, but a great, great problem to have. Singsy says that Siegenthaler comes out. Look,
I don't know. They love him.
It's a good problem to have. And normally injuries and groins and hamstrings and whatever, like they normally take care of these things, right? That's why it's always good to have too many. But I agree with Singsy. Nemec is not coming out of this lineup if he's healthy. So I think the Devils are I think the biggest difference of the New Jersey Devils this year, and I'm going to state the obvious, is they're going to get the save. Even whether it's Allen or Markstrom, you're not getting Shesterkin level goaltending, but you're going to get very competent goaltending from both of these two guys. And I think they're going to support each other. And I think it's going to make it so Markstrom doesn't have to play 65 games. I think Jake Allen is a perfect 1B, but Markstrom made some big time saves over the weekend.
Also, sneaky, super impressed last weekend, Brendan Dillon. That guy's a fucking animal back there. I think he had like 5 block shots in one of the games, fought. Is annoying as hell to play against. Also, from what I've heard, the nicest guy in the league. Like that's always how it works, right? The meanest guys on the ice are always the nicest guys off the ice. But Brendan Dillon was a huge difference maker for them. I feel like in the first 2 games. And we didn't even talk about Tomas Tatar, excuse me, Nico Hischier and Dawson Mercer being reunited. That line was great 2 years ago when the Devils won that first round against the Rangers. They were dominant in that series. Mercer had some big goals. Tatar had the big goal in Game 7. And that line looked really strong, I thought, as well. And then another new addition, a beauty of a kid. I talked to him last year when he was on Vegas. Paul Cotter is such an underrated personality. Yeah. Scores that beautiful goal in the second game, has an empty netter, leads the NHL in points right now. Which is funny. I see Devils fans.
That will probably end as of tonight.
Yeah, but that was a thing too. Like he was in the trade for I think Akira Schmidt and Alexander Holtz, and Holtz was a guy that couldn't play the bottom 6 minutes, right? Like he was drafted high.
Cotter's gonna look. The depth, you look at this third line. I mean, Stefan Nason, who scored
a big goal as well, first goal of the year.
Such a good addition by Fitzy in Jersey. Brings you this big, heavy, straight line, honest player who's played for Ron Brindamore. He's got great habits. He's always above the puck. He's not a guy who cheats for offense. He's like one of those coaches' dreams where you put him out there and you just know what you're going to get. Like you're not having to worry. So I really like the Devils' bottom 6 as well. Like that's where I think. They're going to give the New York Rangers. They're going to give the New York Rangers issues, I think, with the heaviness. and the depth that they have on their second and third lines, like you get into a playoff series with these two rosters, it's going to be good. And Paul Cotter, Stefan Nason, Bastian, McDermott. Look, we know what McDermott is like.
I don't even think he played. I didn't think he played in the first few games. But
I understand that. But when you play against the Rangers, if Rempe and Edstrom and these guys are in, he's going to play whatever. But man, there's a lot of depth on this New Jersey's team. I think this is the year where Fitzy can put his feet up a little bit and kind of enjoy, like, hey, I finally have put together a complete roster that I feel really good about.
I also don't know how Sheldon Keefe and the Toronto staff ran the PK in Toronto, but I noticed, and I believe the broadcast mentioned it as well, on the Devils PK, which was insanely aggressive. I mean, Buffalo didn't score a single goal on power play the whole weekend. They looked lost out there, to be honest. And that's a talented power play with Dahlin, Thompson, Tuck. Like, those are pretty good players. They used 8 forwards, I believe, in one kill. So consistently rotating the 2 forwards in and out, playing super aggressive.
You can have 25-second shifts on a penalty kill. That's
insanely
a massive
aggressive
recipe for success.
Yeah, like it was insanely aggressive. I mean, they were lost out there. But
and then it'll help them when they get Andre Palat back. He's out right now. He makes $6 million bucks. You never like seeing $6 million sitting on the sideline. So look, Devils are going to be a good team. I like Devils and Rangers. I think are going to be the kings of the Metro this year, and they're going to be pushing each other around to see where it goes. So let's keep moving along. We got 2 more teams to hit. We'll probably be another 10 minutes here. We'll get to our bet, and then we'll say goodbye and let everybody get ready to actually watch some regular season hockey that's not taking place over in Europe. What do you want to do here, Johnny? Washington or Philly? Where do you want to go?
I want to do Philly because I'm excited about Philly. They're a team that I've paid a little bit more attention to, obviously, since last year. And we've talked to Scotty Lawton this summer. I talked to Owen Tippett a bit at Player Media Tour. Owen Tippett's such a nice dude. Spoke to him for like 30 minutes at Player Media Tour. Another guy I'm excited to watch this year. But the Flyers are a team that I'm rooting for. And I think you have to talk about this one kid now when you talk about the Flyers, and I'll let you kind of go into it more, but we got to mention Jet Luchenko, 13th overall pick this year. He's this year's NHL's Zach Benson, makes the team right out of camp after being drafted this past draft. Colby, you might be closer to him than I am just because I'm sure you talked to Danny Briere, but what do you make of this whole Jet Luchenko situation? Because he has gone into camp in Philadelphia and not surprised, but impressed almost everyone there, it seems like, and made this team out of camp. Youngest Flyer ever.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to say. I'm just going to say we got to pump the brakes because this is not.
Tort started it. Tort started it.
This has not been a situation where, this is like, hey, we've got an 8-game tryout here. He's going to play a couple of games. Maybe he plays the first couple, then maybe he watches 1 or 2. Like, I think they're going to be patient. I ultimately don't think Jet Luchenko finishes the year in Philadelphia. I think he'll play some games. They'll see how it goes. And then I think he'll end up going back to juniors. This is where I just don't understand the rule. And I think it's ridiculous that these NHL teams can't have one exemption for a first-round pick to play in the American Hockey League because this kid is clearly better than playing junior hockey against 16, 17, and 18-year-old kids, right? But he's probably not ready developmentally to play in the NHL for 82 games. This is where it would be so perfect to have that one, exemption to have a young kid in the American Hockey League that you can bounce up and down. And if he needs to go down and get a little more offense, a little more minutes, you want a guy like Jet Luchenko playing in all situations. He's probably not playing in all situations in Philadelphia in the NHL. So look, exciting. The kid has a lot of speed, a lot of talent. Good for him. I know the plan with him was to be patient, but he forced the Flyers to keep him. He outplayed some guys who played some games last season who have been sent down to the minors. So good for him. But I mean, we've been talking about the Flyers for like 4 or 5 minutes. We haven't mentioned Michkov. And same thing. This is not the savior of the Philadelphia Flyers. This is a 19-year-old kid who had a hard time staying on, St. Petersburg last year in the KHL, so had to consistently be loaned to a, worse team in the KHL. Now, he put up great numbers. He had a good preseason. He looks like a guy who's willing to play in the high traffic areas, which is sometimes what takes the Russian players when they come over here, especially a 19-year-old. How about any North American 19-year-old for the most part as well, having to learn to play in the high traffic areas between the dots in the offensive zone, puck retrievals, board battles, all of these things. But I do like the fact that they've got him on a line with Couturier and Konechny, two guys who know this league well, have had a lot of success in this league. I think Sean Couturier has a bounce back year. I really do. I think he's going to be more like the Sean Couturier that people have come to appreciate in the NHL.
Here's the concern. Power play. Absolute dog shit last year. 12.2% worst power play in the NHL. You have to think it can only get better, right? It can't get much worse. Michkov's probably on that first unit, right?
Oh, Michkov's going to be on the first unit, and then Jamie Drysdale is going to quarterback the unit. They don't look. Travis Sanheim and Cam York are second power play type of guys. Like they're not run your top power play type of players in the National Hockey League. So I think Drysdale is going to get the opportunity to run that power play. He's much more natural up there. The way that he moves,
such a smooth skater.
The way that he's able to move laterally across a blue line, and then again, you have Travis Konechny, you kind of know what you're going to get from him. He's going to score goals. Owen Tippett, he's kind of established himself as a high-end player in the National Hockey League. And then who else kind of fits in there? Is it Morgan Frost, who can make some plays? Michkov's going to get opportunities. You're probably going to see two power play units. It's not going to be like a lot of other teams where, you've got one unit staying out for 140 and then getting 20 seconds. I think there's going to be more. It's going to be a little more divvied up between the group. But look, I think the Flyers will be, again, like they're not a playoff team. I don't think they're a playoff team, but they're going to be better. They added a little more dynamic.
Well, if they're going to be better, how are they not a playoff team? Because they missed it by like 1 point.
Yeah, I know, but I think they caught a lot of teams off guard last year. They really did. But yeah, like I do. I still don't see them as a playoff team, but I do see them, again, they have things that they have not had in the past. But Michkov, like I'm not expecting him to just light it up on day one. I'm really not.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he's going to be exciting to watch all year, and we know how Philly fans can be if he's not producing right away.
Yeah,
I'm interested. I want to hope they're not going to get on him.
Yeah.
Like I have to imagine what were you saying?
No, I'm listening to you. You're talking.
Well, I have to imagine that the Flyers fans are going to give him a little bit of breathing room. Like we know Philly fans can get on their guys, but like they know that this Michkov kid is more about the future than the right now. I would think. So let's say he doesn't have a goal in his first 5 games. Like how do Flyers fans react? Are they going, oh, this kid's a bust, or are they going, give him his time? Like, he'll figure it out, which I think it's the latter, but you never know with hockey fans, man. They are tough. But I don't really have much else in the Flyers. I think is interesting, right? Is it going to be Ursan or Fedotov? I don't think that has been answered yet. Probably Ursan, I think, is where they lean.
Yeah, but it's probably going to be a little bit of a split. Right? Like, I don't think you're going to see one guy. Like, you're going to see 1A, 1B in that situation. So, all right, let's get to the Caps. Final team of the Metro.
Sorry, Jeremiah.
There's probably a lot of disagreements on as to where they could finish. I think I might be a little higher on them than others.
Yeah, I'm not.
I think, again, let's just go to what they brought in versus what they lost. Let's start there, because I think with this team, that's more important. So you add PLD, Mangiapane, Thompson, Chikrin, Duhaime, Taylor Radish. You lose Abe Kubel and Max Pacioretty. I mean, look, from what you lost versus what you gained, it's really not even close, right? Would you agree with that?
I don't think PLD though is much of a difference maker. I really don't.
Yeah, and listen, we've been hard on him on this show for good reason, right?
Yeah, but history shows that it's
But now you've got Jacob Chikrin and John Carlson on your top pair. You've got Matt Waugh, and Seravalli.
I think it's Roy. I think it's Matt
Roy. And then Sandin and Trevor Van Riemsdyk. Like, it's not a bad decor. I mean, it's a good top pair. Roy they brought over from what, LA? He was in LA, right? I want to say he was in LA. I thought he was.
Yeah, he was in the Kemper PLD deal.
So, and then Sandin and Trevor Van Riemsdyk. I think Trevor Van Riemsdyk's an underrated guy. I think he's always been an underrated guy. So look, I don't know, man. If PLD can get it going, which why would he get it going now? He never can get it going.
Jacob Verana made the team also out of camp.
He did. Back. He got a contract. But look, not bad depth at the bottom. I think their third line leaves you with hey, I'd like a little more. But their fourth line, I think they would have an identity. And then what's Ovi going to do? We know he's chasing the record. What does he need? 42 goals or something? 43 goals?
I don't think he gets it.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't get it this year, but he gets it.
Well, he'll get it, but not this year.
Yeah. That's an easy one for him. So
also, funny comment from J Rock. PLD is a difference maker. He makes it easy on every opposing team.
Yeah. Where do you have these guys finishing? Do you think they push the Isles for? Well, Stefen told us the Isles are 2 or 3 seed. I think they're more of a 4 or 5 seed in the division. But where do you put the Washington Capitals in the Metro?
I think I have the Caps at 7, actually.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't like this team. It doesn't really excite me. And I don't know if I have the perfect breakdown of it. To me, they went from average to subpar. I thought last year was a lucky fluke that they made the playoffs just because no one else really took hold of that spot. But I think, like you said, the Flyers got better. I think the Islanders will have better results. The Penguins, I'm still unsure about. The only team that I'm confident that Washington will be better than is Columbus. Other than that, those 4 teams that we talk about, Islanders, Flyers, Caps, Pens, could be in any order. But
I agree with that.
To me, I think the Caps don't have as good of a roster as the others. I just don't.
Well, I think between those teams, I think a lot's going to come down to goaltending. Yeah. I think, the Isles probably have the best tandem of that group. But I
wonder how Logan Thompson, though, does in that room, because Charlie Lindgren won over that job last year. And, Logan Thompson, I've known, has ruffled some feathers in the past, I feel like. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goalie tandem and dynamic is.
Yeah, I think 1, 2, 3, you're talking about Rangers, Devils, Hurricanes. And then I think once you get to 4, 5, 6, 7, I'm with you. The only thing I'm confident about is that Columbus ends up at 8, right? Yeah. But that 4, 5, 6, 7, I think those teams in this little New York, Philly area, the Isles, or excuse me, this little metro, we'll call it the Amtrak, 95 corridor.
Tri-state area.
Those teams could go any which way. I don't know either. I really don't. I'm not confident in really any of them other than let's wait and see how they look over the first, 60 days of the season before, we start making full-on decisions on where those will go. So, all right. That's it. Done with previews. We did everyone. Tomorrow we just kind of get back to, your regular scheduled programming. Frank Seravalli is going to join us tomorrow. We'll get an update from him. He's actually in Utah right now, so we'll get an idea of kind of what's going on out there in Utah. So that'll be good. We also are going to have Glenn Heffron on Thursday. He's the commissioner of the United States Hockey League, the USHL, the best league in the U.S. as far as the junior hockey goes. The reason we're bringing him on, in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, there is a meeting scheduled, a Division I council meeting scheduled, not an emergency meeting, a regularly scheduled meeting, but they are going to talk about adding emergency legislation, which would allow, effective immediately, Canadian Hockey League. So that means OHL, WHL, QMJHL, plus players in Europe to not be ineligible from playing what they would consider pro hockey, as long as you were not compensated to play. So a guy could have played 10 games pro in the Swedish Elite League. As long as they only paid for his travel expenses and they didn't pay him a salary, he could still be eligible to play in the NCAA. Same thing goes for a player in the WHL. If he played 3 NHL preseason games, but he only was paid for travel and expenses, he could be eligible to play in the NCAA. They are voting on this in the next 24 to 48 hours. People are expecting this to pass. They are expecting this to happen, and they are expecting this to pass. And the filter effect of this is going to create a shitload of mayhem for USA Hockey, for the USHL, for the CHL, for the NCAA. It's going to create a disaster. So we're going to get the commissioner of the USHL here on Thursday. I might ask Mike McMahon, who's a college hockey reporter, who's been all over this, to check into it. But they're basically talking about why hockey lives in its own bubble when other athletes from other sports can go play. Like, you could be an amateur golfer, you can go play on the PGA Tour. As long as you don't accept the prize money at the US Open, you could still play college golf. Why is that? You can do that in golf, but you can't do that in hockey. It doesn't really make sense, but it is going to create a shit show for all involved. I've talked to people at USA Hockey. I've talked to some major junior people. I've talked to NCAA people. It is going to be a shit show, right? The fact that the NHL hasn't sort of taken the bull by the horns here and got everyone and figured this out. There's going to be CBA implications based on contracts. It's going to create mayhem. So we're going to get some people on here who understand the situation really well.
I have a ton of questions. Yeah.
Who can explain it to people really well. And I think it's for those of you who are sitting here we don't care about NCAA hockey. Yeah. I understand that. There are some of you here that don't care about that, but this doesn't just affect NCAA. This affects the NHL. Think of all the players that don't sign their contracts and they become free agents and they walk away from your favorite teams. Think about the Rutger McGroarty or the Cutter Gauthier situation. They had all this leverage because they were college hockey players. These things are all going to change based on this ruling that is going to be taking place, this vote that's going to be taking place in the next 48 hours, which, again, everyone is expecting to pass, right? So we're going to try to get you more information on it later in the week with Glenn Heffron. He's studied this. He knows all about it. He's the commissioner of the USHL. He's deeply involved in USA Hockey, so he knows very well how this could affect his league and others.
Well said.
So we'll bring you more information as we can. John Butchergross had a really good tweet about it. I should have given this to Vic to get on the screen, but I actually retweeted it, so you can go down. You can go to mine if you want, and you could just scroll down a little bit, and you can look at what Butchie wrote. It's a really long tweet, and it does give you a lot of good information about this. But again, this is going to affect hockey universally, not just for the NCAA. Shut up, Johnny. You're annoying me. I know.
I'm laughing at J-Rock. The real question is, how does this affect BU?
It really doesn't, because they get all the best recruits anyway. So it really doesn't for the most part. So that's all we got for today, Johnny. I know you want to get to the bet. You want to get to the bet of the day, right?
Yes, bet of the day. I was also going to say that we'll have Pat Maroon on this week, but it will probably be pre-recorded because Pat's playing tonight in Utah. So the timing is a little bit messed up just with the time change 3 hours back. So we will talk to Pat post their first game in Utah. So it'll be cool to hear about, that first game ever being played at the Delta Center and what it's like being in Chicago's room right now after they start their season tonight. So stay tuned for Pat Maroon this week, but let's get into our bet of the day. We're going to do two different things because we have our Metropolitan Division preview, obviously. So we'll talk about which team will win the Metro. I do think it's the New York Rangers, and I actually think it's great value. Now that the Devils' value has gone down because of their first two games, I think getting the Rangers at plus 260 is a great bet. So at the third highest odds right now, or third lowest odds, I think. When it comes to betting in this division, I think the Rangers win the division again. I think their special teams and goaltending separate them. Colby, who do you have winning this division?
It's a good question. I think I'm going to go with the New Jersey Devils. I think I'm on the Devils train. I think it's going to be tight between the Rangers and the Devils. But I also think if you're the New York Rangers, winning the division, winning Metro, all that stuff, that's not your goal. You need to get through the conference final here. That's the goal. If you're a New York Ranger, you're thinking about the playoffs. You need to do whatever you need to do to get ready for the playoffs. But that to me is more the focus on Broadway this year. So yeah, I'm rolling with the Devils.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll have a little rivalry going this year. And then our second bet of the night, since there are 3 games on, we're going to go with the Utah Hockey Club to win in regulation. I like to call it 3-way. That's how they call it. It's minus 110, I believe. I can't really see that. Minus 105. On Bet365. I think Utah wins this game tonight. Their first game, like I mentioned, in not franchise history or is it franchise history? I guess
it is franchise history.
Are they technically a new franchise? They are.
It is
Okay,
franchise. What do you mean? Are they a new franchise? Of course, they're a new franchise.
Well, it was a relocation, so I don't know if it's considered a
new
franchise.
ownership, new everything.
Sometimes that's not considered new, though. Okay,
it's a new franchise, Johnny.
Well, Carolina wasn't when they Hartford or whatever, right? It was the same franchise technically.
Honestly, I don't remember. Like, I don't remember the details from that one. But yes, they moved.
I won't take myself in a corner here.
Yeah, like why do you do this to yourself?
Okay. So yes, Utah to win in regulation. I think they're the better team than Chicago. Obviously, there's going to be an electric atmosphere with the first game for them this year. So we like the Utah Hockey Club on the money line, better goaltending, and hopefully it's a fun game. So we're going with Utah 3-way. Anything else to get to, Colby, before we do wrap up today's show? But I will say that Bet of the Day segment is brought to you by Bet365. What?
Some New York sports news.
I just saw, open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So use our code DAILY365. That's going to wrap it up for today's show, unless you want to talk about Robert Saleh, which I don't really personally care about.
No, it's just huge New York sports news when they're firing their coach. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out the door here. This is a long episode, almost an hour and 40 minutes. So we do appreciate the fact that you guys hung with us, especially those of you who went wire to wire with us today. So give us the like, give us the subscribe on your way out the door. And tomorrow we'll be talking about the games tonight. No more. Hopefully something happens. Hopefully somebody does something dumb or something funny or something entertaining even. And hopefully that happens tonight so we can talk about it tomorrow, Johnny. But go ahead, take the final word and take us on out.
I don't have any more words to say. Oh, I actually want to address one comment in the chat. Mbatali21 asked, what's the deal with the Rangers-Yankees watch party? So I'm trying to, I actually am. We're going to probably announce it today officially. There's a bar in the East Village called Memory Motel. I'm good friends with the owner, and we are going to throw a Mets, Rangers, Yankees watch party on Wednesday night. The Mets play at 5, the Rangers at 7:30, the Yankees at 7. So a big night for New York sports. Apparently, wait, there's a Kevin Weeks tweet right now in regards to Igor Shesterkin. Colby, let me just look this up.
Okay.
While we're on here, I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm starting to see. People in our chat. Yep.
Kevin Weeks. I'm told the Stanley Cup contending and cap spending NY Rangers offer $88 million, $11 million AAV has been rejected by Igor Shesterkin. So,
wow.
Well, I said 11.7.
Hey,
so.
And maybe that's what he wants, but again, why? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know, like, why you would, that's a lot of money. $88 million. That means he's going to be a UFA. That means next year when we're doing this Metro Division preview, this day next year, Johnny, we don't know who the goalie of the New York Rangers is going to be. We better start looking to see who they got in the pipeline.
Yeah, my group chat's blowing up now. But again, we'll save this topic for maybe tomorrow morning. We can start with it. And love you guys. Thank you for listening. And we'll talk to you tomorrow at 9 a.m.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.